everyone, welcome back to Be More, where I encourage you to be a little bit more of every role in the Salesforce ecosystem. And today I am delighted to present to you Be More Project Manager, where I am going to be joined by one of my good friends, Pei, and we are going to be talking about this role and potentially maybe inspiring you to be a little bit more project manager yourself. So Pei, without further ado, if you could introduce yourself for our audience, please.
Hi, Tom. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Pei Mun Lim. I'm lots of things throughout my career in the consulting space. I've done business analysis. I've been a configurator, data solutions architect, but all of this was in the Microsoft ecosystem. When I moved over to Salesforce, I was a project manager, and I stayed a project manager all the last 15 odd years. So this is where I sit. This is where I'm most comfortable, and I really enjoy my role. The reason is that I love working with people, and I love getting them, motivating them, and inspiring them to achieve things that they didn't think possible. So that's the kind of thing that I do enjoy.
Perfect. That's great. And again, welcome and thanks for giving me your time today. So maybe moving on to the next kind of line of questioning, really, introducing your role and ultimately helping our audience understand where a project manager kind of typically fits in and what their day-to-day responsibilities are like.
So I didn't start out wanting to be a project manager, and probably like a lot of your audience, we get hooked by the technology, the fun things that we can do with the platform, with the product to help our clients. And so that's the fun thing that kind of hooked me in the initial part of my career. And what I noticed was within the consulting space, we were always working in a team, a project team, trying to solve a technical or a business problem for a client. And that the role of a project manager is quite crucial in terms of helping to make sure that things tick along nicely. And I didn't realize it at that time, but when I grew into the role, I realized more and more that it was very much a human relationship role, more than understanding what happens first, what happens next, what resource needs to be in place to make sure it happens. But very much I've got a team of people who know their role, know what they're supposed to be doing, know the business analysis side, how to talk to the customer, how to understand what they need, what they want, how to articulate that in requirements. You had Vanessa on a previous episode talking about this particular role itself, and then you've got the developer, and you have another guest, Jonathan, coming on to talk about the developer. And there's many roles in a project team. But what a project manager does isn't just to make sure they do their job properly, but is to remove the roadblocks and the obstacles that stops them from doing what they do best. Mm-hmm. Crucially, and maybe this isn't as obvious to many people, but one of the things that I do is I protect my team from the noise of all the other things that happen outside. That means conversations about scope, about all the politics that happen, about what stakeholders are discussing spiritedly about, the disagreements and all of that. I try to manage that and just distill down what's really important and prioritize that for my team. And I didn't realize this in the beginning, but once I kind of understood that, and you and I know, because we've both kind of worked with the same organization called Samaritans, and it's a charity that talks about active listening. And once I started understanding that and listening to my team, listening to other people, I was able to kind of protect them. And once I was able to do that, a lot of my projects just ran much more easily. So for people who come up to me and say, hey, I want to be a project manager, I would say it's not just about understanding roles, understanding resources, milestones, task dependencies, risk, and all of that. It is understanding very much about human beings, what they want to achieve, and how to help them get what they want.
And I'm really glad you said that, because I reflect some of that in what I do day to day. And yes, I'm in a different role. I'm a solution architect, but I do shield the team and protect the team from ultimately like internal politics. Sometimes with the customer, you have to do a little bit of bartering with scope and timelines and things like that. And I kind of see it as my job in that particular project, because of the structure of the team, to do that, ultimately have that bartering, work out the requirements, define the requirements, and then I get my team of kind of admins involved on that particular account, and ultimately protect them from the noise, because there is a lot of noise. There's sometimes a lot of politics and a lot of kind of back and forth within projects. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And just want to mention about that there's some consulting partners which are quite small, and when they're small, then you might have a consultant or a business analyst who's got to wear all the hats.
Yes.
They've
Yeah.
got to set the expectations, they've got to manage the scope, they've got to do the work, they've got to understand the requirements, make sure that that has been built correctly, do the training, do the testing, and do the project management bit, and manage the noise. And I would say that not everyone can do that or want to do that, because that requires a level of being comfortable with the messiness of human nature.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay for someone to say, I wish there was somebody else, a project manager, a solutions architect, a team lead, somebody to just look after all of that messy things for me, so I can just concentrate on getting my user stories done and deployed as defect-free as possible. And I think that's okay. Then there's the other kind of people, maybe like yourself and me, who find that we are pretty good at that role, at just managing the relationship and the conversations, and get things moving in the right direction, at the same time protecting the team. And that would lend itself more to project managers and people that move up the ranks of leadership within an organization.
Yeah.
As you go up, even as a CTA, I would say, those technical architects, those solutions architects that run enterprise-wide projects and programs, they will not be free of managing the politics and the messiness of human beings interacting with such high stakes in projects where where budgets runs to many zeros, for example. You won't escape from that at all. So there are some people who just enjoy doing the work, and there's some who can manage at that level. So I would see project management as as having to deal with that. That is just part of your role, and you can't get away from that.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we have to have those difficult conversations. Sometimes you have to say to the customer, like, this isn't going to work, or I need more budget, or we're going to need to extend the timeline, right? How do you deal with those types of situations when that does inevitably happen?
I think that being a project manager means that you're automatically the bad cop. But in a good cop, bad cop situation, that is, they should actually put in a job description that is part of your role to be the bad cop, to give the bad news, to be the one who says, no, I'm sorry, you can't have that because of these reasons. And so in my team, I actually encourage my team members to use me as the foil. When the client comes and says, I need this doing, you can do that. It will only take you half an hour. But usually, sometimes that half an hour will balloon into something much bigger. And something that looks and feels really small actually hides a lot of risk behind it that needs more thorough thinking about, and planning, and ensuring you have regression testing in place so that it doesn't break something else. So there's all these sort of things that when a client, end user, or a stakeholder come up to an admin or a business analyst or a configurator to say, hey, can you just add this thing in? It's really nice, simple. I did it on Trailhead. It took me an hour. It should take you like 10-15 minutes. So when somebody asks my team that, I tell them, to just flick it back to me and say, I would love to help you, but my project manager, she's going to not be happy if I did it. So if you
Bad
don't
cop.
mind, let me run it by her. And I always already start with setting management really clear, as clear as I can, as early as I can. So
Yeah.
one of the key things that I tell a lot of PMs that they don't realize, that your kickoff is the excellent point to set expectations. This is what I understand we want to achieve. These are your critical success criteria. These are your constraints. These
Yeah.
are the risks that we have to keep an eye out on. And and this is how we're going to get it done. Where is this your understanding as well? So the kickoff is where I just set everything up, and then I just make sure I tick it over. So things like as your question is, when a customer comes up and says, I want this big thing, I want it, you didn't capture requirements, and I will fall back on what's called the iron triangle of project management, which is the cast iron relationship between budget, scope, and resources, and the fact that you can't flex that triangle easily without compromising quality. So I'll say, yes, you can have that, but that's going to impact budget and time.
Yeah.
How do you want me to make that happen for you? Right? Do you want me to replan the project? Would you like me to raise a change request for more budget? So every time I talk, I will talk in terms of that relationship and how a request will impact other things. And a lot of people won't like it, but that is part of my job. And if I'm able to do that in a tactful way, in a generous and empathetic way, then usually my end users and my clients understand that I'm not there to make money off them. I'm not there to fleece them or trick them or anything. I'm there to make sure that the project, our project, is is successful as possible.
Yeah.
So that just makes the conversations easier. I let my team just use me as a foil. I'm the bad person, and I try and manage the bad news as kindly and tactfully as I can. That's the way I found to manage it.
Yeah, no, that's really great. And I think there's some solid advice there. And I'm glad you mentioned expectations, because I think that's really important. I've learned through like different experiences and scenarios really that the customer really appreciates you, even if you're going back and say, like, the team are busy on something else right now. We will look at this. We haven't forgotten about it. We'll get back to you next week. Right. Just that little bit of setting expectations is super important, because you ultimately want to keep the customer informed, and make sure that you're on the same page. Because, and again, you kind of hinted towards it at the end, success for the customer means success for you, right? If the customer's not happy, then usually the company or the consulting partner or whoever it is also not happy, right? So those two things come hand in hand. I think that's really important, that kind of expectations are managed. And also I like the kind of hint of like making sure that while that's happening, you're protecting the team from that and looking out for the team as well, because that's important too. We're human beings, right? We have feelings, we have emotions, and it's important to kind of maybe use your position as a senior kind of level, or somebody higher up on the project, like hierarchically or whatever it is, to protect the team from that noise and maybe that disruption and upset or confusion or whatever it is. I think that's really important too, and I'm glad that's coming out here. And I mean, it's no surprise because this is why I wanted to chat with you, because I knew this type of stuff would come out, because of some of the other stuff that you do, and you ultimately care about people and their mental health, and their emotions are important. So great advice there. In terms of interacting with other people, so say you're on a big enterprise project and you have a solution architect, technical architect, a developer, an admin, consultant, a BA, all of those different roles. Where does the project manager typically fit in, and I guess, where's the project manager usually responsible for as well? How does that work?
So from a consulting point of view, one part of my role is tension between different demands. One is my client expects me to make sure the project completes within budget, within time, as easily and successfully as possible, at the same time throwing additional requirements at us.
Yeah.
And then there is the tension for my organization to try and maximize the revenue utilization and billable side of things, which means I'm rewarded for the amount of change requests that I can raise, for example, which I try not to do too frivolously. For example, I make sure that I talk to the client, that they want whatever they want, but it's something that we review and make sure that it's within the scope, and we do our due diligence and risk management around it. So that's two sides. And the third side is for my team, actually, in terms of, we talked about protecting them to make sure that they can do what they want to do in a way that isn't too stressful for them, that I'm not making them work evenings and weekends because I haven't been able to have that difficult conversation with the client to say that what you're asking is above and beyond what we have scoped for, we have the time for, we have the resource and the budget for, all those sort of things that are difficult conversations. If I don't do that, I'm doing my team a disservice, I'm doing the client a disservice, and I'm doing my company a disservice. So when I look at the different roles, I'm thinking about all of that at the same time. How do I make sure that everyone can do what they do best? My job is to remove obstacles that's within my influence and my authority to do so. And that's my role. My role isn't to say this is a better solution than the other, you should do it this way, or any of those things. The team knows what they know best. And I'm there to make sure that their road is as obstacle free as possible.
Kind of the glue almost holding it together in a way.
I'd like to think that.
Yeah, definitely. So thinking about if you were starting out in this role for the first time, what type of advice would you give to somebody thinking about a career in project management, whether or not that's within Salesforce? Would obviously be up to them, but what would you kind of share as some tidbits there?
I think I would have liked to have known the difference between project administrator and project management. The project admin bit is the tactical bit, and the project management bit is the relationship bit. That if we focus on the relationship bit, which is the important bit, all the other bits will kind of fall into place. If you understand why someone isn't able to do what they've promised, and it could be a personal reason, once you understand that and you show empathy and active listening, then they'll be able to do what they're supposed to do. If you focus on how come you didn't do your user stories in time? Why didn't you deploy this properly? Why are they when you focus on all of that, you overlook the important bits. So look after the important bits, and the small bits will kind of look after themselves. So I wish someone told me that. I think it would have helped me a lot more.
Yeah. Okay, great. And you hinted at it already with the active listening theme that kind of keeps on coming back. But what skills, attributes do you think it takes to be a project manager as well as active listening?
Part of active listening is empathy. And part of empathy is intersects with systems thinking, which is understanding mental models and how other people got to where they are today. If you can master that, master is a strong word, but if you can keep on learning about that, then you'll find understanding other people and their motivations a little bit easier, and empathy comes also easier, which makes your work easier. I think that's a crucial element over and above the understanding of our resources, critical time plans, critical path, dependencies, risks, and all of that it's a human element that actually pulls everything else together.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. The human element at the heart of everything you do. I think that's really important. And I totally agree with that. Now you have an opportunity to bust a myth about a project manager. Like if there's something you'd like to change or make people more aware about. So for example, there's a stereotype or misconception around project managers. Do you have anything there that you would kind of like to clarify for our audience? Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, I think project managers are like testers in a project.
Mhm.
Many people feel that they're not necessary. Many clients, many organizations, the first thing that they want to slash out is the project management and the
Yeah.
testing. And these two roles together actually pulls everything else together.
Mhm.
Pulls the solutions architect, the design, the requirements, all of that, pulls it
Yeah.
all together. You might be able to build flows very beautifully, but if you aren't able to understand what it is they need, if you aren't able to test it properly, if you aren't able to do all the other things that a PM actually needs to think about and understand and do, I'm going to say it again, pull it together
Yeah.
into one big project, one big thing, then it's not going to be successful. That's the one thing that people always think: project management and QA time, we don't need all that time in a project, do we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's the thing that will cause the project to fail.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of like you said it already, but like QA for the project itself, like it holds its quality assurance that the project team is going to deliver what they need to do when they need to do it, and they're ultimately not blocked by information they're waiting for from the customer, for example, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think also one big part of PM's role is to
Mm,
anticipate issues and to manage the risk. And when you're busy doing what you're great at, again, it might be the design, might be the flow, the thinking forward that, oh, hang on, the client hasn't actually told anyone that this project's coming. They don't have
yeah.
testers, they don't have all of these things. So these are the things that a PM needs to be thinking about. What's going to happen once we finish a project? Who's going to support it? Do you have an internal admin? If we're talking about consulting with projects,
Mm,
those sort of things. It's a PM's role to be forward thinking and to just remove all the obstacles on
oh,
your road.
yeah.
Make sure that you've got a nice landing in terms of the project delivery, go live, deployed. Then you've got a team that can pick it up, manage it, and enhance it moving forward. That's a kind of, it's like a mom having to think about all the things. Do we have enough nappies? Do we
Yeah.
have, all that sort of things? And that's an important role that, that shouldn't be overlooked.
Mhm. Yeah, no, totally agree. So bringing this to a close, really, unfortunately, we're almost out of time for today's session, but how can people connect with you and your content to perhaps be inspired a little bit more?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And your audience can find me by searching for On the Payroll. So that's my handle on everything, on Insta, on Twitter, maybe not LinkedIn. But that's how you can find me. And I talk and write about everything from consulting to business analysis, project management, leadership, active listening, and Samaritans. And I'm wondering if I can plug my book.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
So
Have
I
it.
wrote I wrote this book last year, and it's a book that I wish that I had when I was starting out. So this Salesforce Discovery 101, it talks about the role of the consulting team, the different members in the business analysis side, and how we set up projects for success, what the project manager does, what the business analyst does, the consulting expert, and the technical architect. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
that's what I wish someone wrote for me when I was
Like a
younger.
like a handbook almost to getting started, right?
Yes, how to set up the project for success by doing a great discovery.
Awesome. That is great. Thanks again for your time today. And hopefully this content, when it goes out, it will help people and inspire people to be a little bit more project manager. So thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Be More with Tom Bassett. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave any feedback in the comments.